Have you ever, looked at an old photograph from, say, 1996?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right, and you notice the obvious stuff first, you know?
Like the frosted tips.
Exactly, the frosted tips, maybe a neon fanny pack, or a chunky plastic cassette player just sitting on the coffee table.
Yeah, that classic aesthetic.
But what if the most important thing in that picture is actually, well, what if it's invisible?
Wait, invisible, how do you mean?
I mean the atmosphere. It's the specific feeling those people had about tomorrow.
Oh, I see.
Right. In our deep dive today into this fascinating cultural analysis called the last era of optimism, we aren't really here to argue that the 90s and early 2000s were, objectively flawless.
No, of course not.
And we're not saying everything today is terrible either. We are here to decode a lost psychological mindset.
A completely different headspace.
Exactly. A time when a whole society seemed to genuinely believe that tomorrow would be inherently brighter than today. So for you listening, we're going to try and figure out why that was.
It is a really profound shift in perspective when you look at it that way.
Yeah.
Because we get so caught up in the aesthetics of nostalgia, missing MTV or the mall or whatever, that we completely miss the underlying psychology.
We get distracted by the neon colors.
Right. We're actually grieving a collective belief in forward momentum. The question is, how does an entire culture arrive at that specific headspace?
Okay, let's unpack this. Because a societal mood shifts like that, it doesn't just, spontaneously generate out of thin air.
No, it doesn't.
It has to be rooted in something concrete.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, to understand the optimism of the 90s, you have to look at the immediate evaporation of a very specific kind of terror.
Which terror?
The Cold War. It had just ended. The Berlin Wall fell, the Soviet Union dissolved.
Oh, right.
And for decades prior to that, Americans were living with this baseline hum of nuclear annihilation.
Just constantly in the background.
Exactly. It was an existential dread woven into everyday life. You had duck-and-cover drills, geopolitical brinkmanship.
Wow.
So when that shadow suddenly lifts, the psychological relief is just staggering.
That makes total sense. Because if you are constantly bracing for the end of the world, your planning horizon is incredibly short. Right.
We're just trying to survive the decade.
Exactly. But when the threat of mutual assured destruction fades away, suddenly you have the mental luxury to think about 5, 10, 20 years down the line. You can actually visualize a future.
And, it wasn't just a psychological shift. It was actually matched by tangible material conditions, too.
Like the economy.
Right. That geopolitical relief converged with a massive economic expansion. The mechanisms of a middle-class life were just functioning for a broad swath of people.
Okay.
Home ownership was an attainable math equation, not some impossible pipe dream.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
And college was generally seen as a reliable, direct pathway to opportunity. Plus, entirely new industries were being born.
Right. So the future transitioned from this dark, looming threat to a wide-open frontier.
Precisely.
Which brings us to the internet.
Ah, yes. Early tech.
The analysis we're looking at makes a distinction about early technology that completely reframed how I think about that era. I've been turning this analogy over in my head. It sounds like technology back then felt like discovering a new neighborhood, whereas today it often feels like being put on a leash.
That is the perfect way to put it. It's the difference between a tool you wield and an environment that wields you.
Yeah.
The mechanism of early technology was bounded. It had physical limitations.
Right. You had to dial up.
And hear that noise.
Yes. It made that horrible screeching noise. It tied up the landline so nobody could call the house.
Choice.
You logged on. You explored a forum. Maybe you built a quirky little GeoCities webpage. And then, and this is the crucial part, you logged off.
You walked away.
You walked away from the computer and went to dinner.
Yeah.
The neighborhood stayed where it was. People weren't constantly debating the dangers of tech.
No, they were just curious. They were building things and chatting with strangers without all that exhaustion. Today feels like a leash because of, algorithmic engagement loops.
The neighborhood follows you.
Right. It follows you in your pocket and buzzes every time you try to leave.
Yeah.
But in the 90s, every advancement like email, instant messaging, digital cameras, it was seen as an adventure. It was additive.
Just a tool to expand possibility.
Exactly. It felt like opening another door without the simultaneous drain of managing a 247 digital persona. There was no algorithm designed to monetize your anger or keep you doom scrolling.
And that lack of digital exhaustion actually freed up an enormous amount of creative bandwidth, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Because people weren't burning their energy managing 5 different apps, Hollywood and television were able to tap into a culture that actually had the attention span to explore deep personal self-discovery.
What's fascinating here is that this is the exact mechanism that shaped the media of the time.
How so?
Well, when the stakes of daily life aren't the world is ending or we have to save the universe, the stakes in your storytelling can become intensely personal.
Right. Instead of apocalyptic blockbusters, you get stories about navigating life.
Exactly. The dominant message of 1990s media was that your future isn't predetermined. The culture had the emotional capacity to focus on human potential.
Okay, so let's look at the specific movies the source mentions, because this list is really interesting. We've got Good Will Hunting, October Sky, The Truman Show, Forrest Gump, and Jerry Maguire.
Fantastic lineup.
It is. But I have a question about this. Did these movies and shows ignore the struggles of reality, or did they just frame those struggles differently? Because I remember the 90s having a lot of angst, too.
That's a really great point. They definitely didn't ignore the struggles. The optimism wasn't the denial of darkness. It was a framework for processing it.
Okay, can you give an example?
Let's take Good Will Hunting. At its core, that movie is about severe trauma, abuse, and poverty.
Yeah, it gets pretty heavy.
It does. But it doesn't wallow in that trauma as a permanent, inescapable identity. The plot is about breaking through those defense mechanisms to realize untapped potential. The audience leaves the theater feeling inspired, like agency is still possible.
Wow, yeah. And you see that everywhere once you start looking for it. Even in October Sky, it's about curiosity literally changing a life against all odds. Or take The Truman Show.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
Right. We all know the premise, a guy unknowingly trapped in a reality television show. But the cultural historians in our source argue we completely misinterpret that movie today.
We view it as a warning now.
Exactly. We view it as this dark, prophetic warning about surveillance capitalism. But at the time, the emotional resonance was entirely different. It was about breaking free.
Finding your authentic self.
Yes, having the courage to walk out the door and find who you really are. And then with Forrest Gump, it's about finding meaning in total unpredictability.
And Jerry Maguire, too. The fundamental conflict there isn't saving the world from aliens. It's a guy realizing that cutthroat corporate success is completely hollow if it costs you your integrity and human connection.
Success versus integrity.
Right. The culture was interrogating what a good life actually meant.
And television mirrored this perfectly, didn't it?
Oh, completely.
Looking at the shows, the source highlights Friends, Boy Meets World, Home Improvement, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and Everybody Loves Raymond.
Classic sitcoms.
Yeah, and nobody is a superhero in any of them. They're just trying to get through a Tuesday.
Right. They get fired, they get dumped.
They make incredibly stupid decisions, but the underlying message was that life is complicated, we make mistakes, but your community, your chosen family, they help you through it.
And that regulates your nervous system as a viewer. You finish an episode feeling grounded.
And when media regulates your nervous system rather than fracturing it, you actually have the energy to engage with the physical world.
Which brings us to the music and the radio era. Music functioned as the ultimate connective tissue of that decade.
The summer soundtracks. The analysis refers to these songs as time machines, and it is unbelievably accurate.
Just hearing a few notes is enough.
Right. You hear the first 3 seconds of Sugar Ray's Fly, or Smash Mouth's All-Star, or Santana's Smooth, and you are instantly transported. You're on a beach trip or driving with the windows down.
It's visceral. And don't forget Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba.
Oh my gosh, yes. I get knocked down, but I get up again. But, here is where it gets really interesting.
Okay, tell me.
If you look at a song like Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind.
Oh, one of the most upbeat, culturally ubiquitous songs of the decade.
Exactly. It sounds like pure distilled sunshine. But if you actually read the lyrics, it is a devastatingly dark track. It's about crystal meth addiction and watching a life fall apart.
It really is.
So why did the culture pump out this incredibly sunny, hyper-energetic music to mask lyrics about addiction?
It's that cognitive dissonance again. The culture had the capacity to acknowledge deep societal problems, but it fundamentally refused to surrender to despair.
So the upbeat tempo was intentional.
Yeah, by wrapping that darkness in an aggressively bright, driving tempo, the music was literally compelling you to move. It was insisting that despite the wreckage, you still had to go outside and experience life.
Wow. A refusal to be paralyzed.
Exactly. And we experience that music collectively. Radio was doing the heavy lifting of cultural cohesion before algorithms came along.
Before Spotify splintered us all into our own fragmented little worlds.
Right. The unity created by that lack of choice cannot be overstated. Everyone heard the same local morning shows.
People actually requested songs.
Yes, you'd sit by your boombox with a blank cassette tape, hovering your finger over the record button, just waiting for the DJ to finally play your favorite track.
The physical effort of that is just wild to think about now. To participate in this culture, you had to physically work for it.
You really did.
And that extended to human connection, too,
Yeah.
which is a huge paradox of friendship in the 90s.
How so?
Well, friendships required immense physical effort. You had to physically ride your bike across town, visit arcades, or just show up unannounced to see if a friend was home.
Yeah, you invested tangible energy into the relationship.
Exactly. But at the same time, there was profound freedom in being completely unreachable.
Yes, the gift of being unreachable.
I have to admit, when the source started talking about this, I found the concept terrifying at first glance.
Really terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, the idea of leaving my house with no GPS, no cell phone, and literally no way for my family or friends to reach me if something goes wrong, it genuinely gives me anxiety just thinking about it.
Well, that anxiety is a perfect symptom of our current era. We have been conditioned to believe that constant connection equals safety.
Right.
But the psychological data from the period suggests something very different. In the 90s, young people could disappear for hours without being tracked or recorded.
You were just gone.
Gone. And in that unobserved space, the slower pace left room for boredom.
Boredom. We run from boredom so fast today. I'll pull my phone out the second I have to wait for an elevator.
But when you remove the option of instant digital distraction, the brain is forced to entertain itself. Boredom sparks creativity. You daydream, you invent games, you think independently.
So that mental space is deeply associated with the optimism of the era. But wait, this brings me to a massive contradiction in the historical narrative that we need to clear up.
Okay, what is it?
We are talking about this era of profound optimism, slower pacing, and hopefulness. But the generation driving the core of this culture, Generation X, they are stereotypically known as the most cynical, disillusioned generation in modern history.
This raises an important question. Because you're right, that is the classic stereotype.
So how does that work?
Well, when you look closely at the societal mechanics, you realize the stereotype is incomplete. Gen X wasn't sheltered at all. They faced real hardships.
Like what?
They grew up in an era of exploding divorce rates, economic uncertainty, corporate layoffs. They were the latchkey kids coming home to empty houses.
Wait, if Gen X dealt with all that instability, how did they become the engine of this optimistic era? Shouldn't they have been incredibly pessimistic?
You would assume so, but the dynamic created something that cultural historians in our text call realistic optimism.
Realistic optimism.
Right. Their mindset wasn't a naive, everything will magically work out.
It wasn't toxic positivity.
Exactly. Because they had to make their own after-school snacks and manage their own time. They developed intense, self-taught competence.
They trusted themselves.
Yes. The mindset was, life can be difficult, but we'll figure it out. They had a pre-social media, post-Cold War confidence that was genuinely real. They expected innovation and progress because they saw themselves as the ones who were going to build it.
Life is difficult, but we'll figure it out. That is such a grounded form of hope. It's not ignoring the darkness, it's just refusing to let the darkness have the final word.
Precisely.
So, for you listening to this, what does this all actually mean for you? Because we obviously can't time travel, right?
No, unfortunately not.
You can't uninvent the algorithm. But this mindset, choosing to believe that possibility is greater than fear, is a framework anyone can adopt today, regardless of the era they were born in.
Absolutely. You can value physical world community over digital metrics. You can view technology as a bounded tool.
Right. So, to summarize what we've covered today, the 90s and early 2000s were not necessarily easier times. People suffered, systems failed.
But they were defined by a shared culture that pointed toward hope.
Exactly. It viewed the future as something to build, not something to dread.
And a lot of that was possible because people had the unobserved mental space to figure out who they actually were.
Which leaves me grappling with this final kind of provocative thought for you to mull over.
I love a good provocative thought.
We spend a lot of time on the freedom of being unreachable and how boredom sparked creativity.
Right.
If the optimism and deep connection of the 90s were actually fueled by the fact that we couldn't always reach each other, that we had forced periods of disconnection, How can we artificially manufacture that unreachable time today?
That is the big question.
Is the secret to reclaiming our optimism as simple as finally turning off our phones and intentionally letting ourselves get a little lost?
It just might be.
It's something to think about the next time you look at one of those old photos. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Carry a bit of that realistic optimism into your day, and we'll catch you next time.